I grab a cup with some ice in it. What's going on, family? It's your boy RGP Ace, and I'm back again with another video. This time we got the second installment of our WKU rebuild. And as you guys know, we are coming off a win in our first game of the year against Sam Houston State. So we started off the season with a W, and then we also started off the season with a conference W because for some reason, Western Kentucky opened their season up this year with a conference game. And as we take a look, just looking at our players that we have at risk, we still have a boatload of players that are at risk, which is already expected, so I'm not too worried about that. And CUSA Defensive Player of the Week, you got Breckenridge coming off that 2-pick game against Sam Houston. And CUSA Offensive Player of the Week, we got Corey Landers, who had 10 carries and went for 66 rushing yards last week. And now just taking a look at the recruiting board, just going ahead and getting rid of, all the players that kind of X us out. And one thing I'm not too happy about is Johnny Gore, that 4-star gem that we had, the one that I was so high on our board, the left tackle, he went ahead and X us out as well. But good thing is, we still have Elijah Kanoy, the 3-star gem. He's still on our board. And then after last week's game, we actually went up to number 1 on his interest list. And the good thing about, having those players go ahead and cross you out early, as you see, it went back to 200. We got back 240 hours that we can spend on a shorter player pool than we had before. For example, last week, I don't know the exact number, we might have had 35 players that were on our recruiting board. This week, we're coming into 29. So 6 less players, it's easier to allocate more hours to certain players. And the players that we really want to target, we can send a house. If not, because we're still a rebuilding school, we can probably pair it with contact friends and family, and then maybe send them a DM or search them on social media. Like, you can pair the two now that I have 6 less players that I'm actually looking into for recruiting. And that's one reason too why I like the recruiting side of this so much, just because it's so tactical, right? Like, on a surface level, it seems like it's pretty straightforward, but it's not. In all actuality, you have to have a strategy, just like you do when you're playing the game. You need a strategy with recruiting. You can't, send the house on that. Don't get me wrong, right? It's easier to recruit if you're at a bigger school, but that strategy comes in, and actual, having the skill to be a good recruiter comes in when you're at the smaller range schools. You have lower grades in certain categories, and then you have less hours to spend actually going on visits, talking to players. It gets to a point where you have to have a strategy in it. You can't just full house blitz on 10, 15 players. If you're doing a full house blitz and that's sitting 50 hours on each player, you probably get 10 players that you can scout, right? And then, like, we're looking at the actual transfer portal board, like who's going to leave in the transfer portal, and I have more than 10 players. So I have to be strategic with my hours. I have to know what gaps I'm going to need filled and where are my biggest areas of opportunity heading into next year. Because on the field, I'm focusing on this year, but my recruiting is all focused on next year. And of course, you got the transfer portal, but I don't want my transfer portal to be my number 1 option. I just want my transfer portal to kind of be my backup. Like, hey, I didn't get a strong safety. Let's see what I can get in the portal real quick. Or, hey, my strong safety just decided to go to the draft. Now I'm having to piece something together really quick. That's what I want to use the transfer portal for, just to piece something together really quick, but I still want to be really, really good as far as recruiting from the high school rank. Let's go ahead and jump into this gameplay here. We got our second home game, second game of the season, this time going up against FCS. So on paper, this should be a fairly, I don't want to say easy, but a fairly, not having your foot on the gas as much type of game for us. So we'll see how this one goes. And that just reminded me, Western Kentucky just played their bowl game. I believe they played against Southern Miss. They played in the New Orleans Bowl, I believe. They ended up winning. But one thing that I was not privy on before watching that WKU game was they're actually not starting Maverick. They're starting the backup. So what happened earlier in the season, like midway through the season, somewhere in there, MacGyver got hurt. I believe it was his pec, and he went out. The backup kind of balled out. But keep in mind, MacGyver he was a starter coming into the season, and he's a senior now. So I guess WKU, they didn't want to mess up the rhythm that they had built with the backup, because he'd been playing so well. He got his opportunity, and he made the most of his opportunity that he got. Maverick was starting on the bench that game. The backup wasn't doing too well. I believe he might have got hurt a little. He got nicked up something. I think he went into the concussion tent. They checked him out. He was okay. But prior to him getting hurt, the offense was completely stalled out. They put Maverick in the game. First couple drives is slower. I believe he threw sequence, but he threw a pass to the tight end. The tight end ran it all the way back. He was running real loose with the ball. He ended up getting tackled, fumbled it. I think he was inside the 5-yard line. So he was producing more offense than the original starter was. So the head coach was kind of torn between, do I keep Maverick in or do I put the guy that got us here back in the game? And when you think about it, the backup, I believe he's either a freshman or a sophomore. He's an underclassman, so he still has a lot more time. Whereas Maverick, he's a senior. Like, this is his last game of his collegiate career. So do I really sit him out of this game or pull him out and put the starter back in that was struggling, or do I just keep him in because he's showing that he's ready for this moment? He's ready to leave it all out. He's ready to have a storybook ending, which in turn he ends up doing because, like I said, they won the bowl game. The Hilltoppers were the New Orleans Bowl champions this season. But I doubt, I hope it won't be Maverick's last game playing, because a lot of the broadcast when he came in, it was more so focused on him being on some draft boards. He might not be a top 3 round pick, but he is on some draft boards, probably day 3. They're saying he's projected to get drafted, so hopefully he can get drafted to a team. Maybe an opportunity comes up for him to play, whether it's in training camp or preseason or regular season. I don't wish injuries on anybody, but hopefully when he gets his spot, because it's gonna come, it's bound to come. Spots are always opening up, so hopefully when he gets his chance, he's able to capitalize on that. So hopefully we can see Maverick again on the field. And Western Kentucky also has another NFL prospect on their offensive side, Matthew Henry, the wide receiver, number 17. He had a really, really big game in their bowl game against Southern Miss. I believe he had like 7 or 8 catches, almost went for like 130 yards. So he went absolutely crazy in that game. He didn't get in the end zone, but like I said, 7 catches for about 130 yards is an insane game. He's a senior as well, so hopefully he can have a bright career in the NFL as well too. They were saying he was a day 3 pick as well, mid. He'll probably get drafted before Maverick does, just because he went crazy in that bowl game. And he was going up against another prospect, an NFL prospect on Southern Miss. Southern Miss had a cornerback who was really, really good as well, and Henry was still able to give that cornerback, an NFL caliber type cornerback, he was still able to give him buckets. So I don't know if I'm biased or what, but just seeing Henry do what he did in that bowl game has me really amped to use him going forward. I know before I said I wanted Maverick to be in the running for Heisman. Now I kind of want Henry to get the Heisman. So over these next couple weeks, definitely am going to be trying to target Henry. We know what we have as far as our quarterback is concerned. I was definitely sleep on the receiver side of the ball. So anytime I'm trying to get rid of the ball in a hurry, I'm just going to chuck it down there to Henry. He's going to be down there somewhere. I know he can probably get up over most of the cornerbacks, most of the DBs in his conference. So I'm not really worried about that, but I do want to target Henry just so from what I can do on my end as a head coach, as far as the game is concerned, right? I want him to be a higher draft pick than he might be in real life. Hopefully he still gets drafted. It doesn't always pan out like that. You can be on a draft board and still go undrafted, whatever. Cool. Just as far as this Western Kentucky rebuild is concerned, I really, really hope that Henry gets drafted. What I'm going to do, I'm going to try to focus on Henry and Maverick, just setting them up and kind of just showcasing their skills that they have. And now that I'm actually just sitting back and thinking about it, I picked the wrong school to do a rebuild with, because this school is not bad at all. Like, we went through the record, we saw they had a lot of winning seasons, only a couple of down years. I know the year before this season was a down year, and then them just making it to a bowl game in real life just kind of felt offsetting as well, because like this team it doesn't need a rebuild. They're good. Of course you want to shoot for the football playoffs, which is what I'm going to be shooting for, but just as far as building a team from the ground up, this school is not that. This school is already well established. Like, we got 2 NFL level prospects, probably even more than that I just haven't dug deep enough into the history, into the actual tooling of this team yet. So I'm pretty sure there's more draft prospects on this team. I'm just not aware of it. But this team has a lot of talent, so it's no real rebuild. It's just getting them to the postseason college football playoffs, because in this era of college football, a lot of teams are not satisfied making it to a bowl game. Teams want to make it to the playoffs, which is understandable. Like, they see a bowl game as a spit in the face. In previous years before, they had the playoffs, all this stuff, making it to a bowl game was like, you were hyped. Your team made it to a bowl game. Your team had 7 wins. They qualified to make it to a bowl game. But now, okay, cool. We got the bowl game bid, 7 games. Let's keep pushing. Let's shoot for the conference. Now let's shoot for the playoffs. Even winning the playoffs, because we saw Kennesaw State won the CUSA today. It doesn't guarantee you a spot in the college football playoffs, just because of the tier of teams, like the caliber of the teams is very different. But at least now a lot of these smaller schools are getting the fair opportunity to compete for the same title, right? Because it wouldn't be fair if a team in the CUSA went undefeated and here you go, here's your ticket. No disrespect to the New Orleans Bowl, like 100% looking looking at that as a slap in the face. Like, we just went undefeated. We defeated everybody that was put in front of us. Why are we not given the same opportunity to go to the college football playoffs as these other schools? I get it. They're more prestigious schools. They're more known. But we did all we can do. We defeated everybody that was put in front of us. And that's kind of where a lot of thanks needs to start going to UCF. Without UCF having that season that they had a couple years ago, I feel like a lot of this would still only be, like a lot of the playoffs and stuff would still only include the bigger name schools. So definitely big shout out to UCF for breaking down those barriers, because without that 13-0 undefeated season in 2017 by them, a lot of these conversations wouldn't even be had today. Even if they would have only lost one game, that would have nullified this conversation. It wouldn't be a conversation. They had to go undefeated and win that bowl game against Auburn to even make this into a conversation. So UCF opened up so many doors, and at the time they were in the American Conference, and as we know now, even now, the American Conference, how it's looked at, like, it's the American Conference, like, you wouldn't stand a chance. But them, like I said, playing an SEC school in the Peach Bowl is what opened up the door to the conversation of, could a mid-major school win a national championship? Of course, it'd be harder, but they still would have the possibility to do it. And without us as the committee giving them a fair shot, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's no reason that an undefeated team now, even then, an undefeated team then should have been in the playoffs, because I believe that year, 2017, I want to say it was Wisconsin. I believe it was Wisconsin. They made it over them, and they had a loss. And I believe that was a big conversation there. Like, they could beat Wisconsin, whatever. If Wisconsin can make it, UCF can make it. But it just being so big for a team, it created so much controversy for a team that went undefeated to not even have a chance at making, history, even competing for a national championship. And I get why they wanted to put Wisconsin in over UCF. Wisconsin had the bigger names. Of course, it all ties back to money. We know that. But Wisconsin had the bigger names. I believe they had a freshman, Jonathan Taylor, at the time, who had just led the Big Ten in rushing yards and attempts. So, of course, you want to put that caliber of player on your biggest stage, because at the time the CFP was still new, so they were definitely trying to push the viewership and see how it could work out. Definitely just having the bigger names on that stage was helping draw in more views. And like I said, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. It's not about X's and O's, it's about Jimmys and Joes. And wow, I just missed that big catch by FCS that kind of gave them their first points of the game. But I've been talking over this entire gameplay, but that was a crazy catch by FCS to give them their first points of the game. But it's not really been too much to talk about. Like I said at the start of this, playing FCS should be a cakewalk, and that's what it's turning into. 38-7. Got about a minute left in the fourth quarter, so it looks like we are going to get off to that 2-0 start on the season. 2-0 record so far on this rebuild. 2-0 record to start my career off as the head coach of the Hilltoppers. And the quarterback that we have in now, number 16, that's actually the quarterback that I was talking about earlier when I said he started the New Orleans Bowl for WKU. And my bad to you for not mentioning your name to start off with, but the quarterback number 16 that we have is Rodney Tisdale Jr. He's a 6'2", 190-pound redshirt freshman out of Jacksonville, Florida. So we have him in the game getting his first snaps of the season, just so we can try to test him out to see how we'll look next year once Maverick leaves us. But that's pretty much all we have from this game. We end up taking the dub 38-7 as time runs out on that last punt return. And as you see, FCS, they kind of held us in check that fourth quarter. Nobody scored. There was kind of a stalemate, and very, very nice game for us on the offensive side of the ball. We had MacGyver throw for 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, 88 completion percentage with 0 interceptions. Not so much of a running game this game. We had 33 from Landers and then 26 yards from Hart the third. And then through the air receiving, Landers led us. He had 87 receiving yards followed by 41. And surprisingly, Matthew Henry only had 1 catch for 22 receiving yards. So definitely gonna have to start looking forward to getting him more involved in this offense if we're still trying to have him on that Heisman track like we discussed earlier. And starting off 2-0, we did get a little bump in our championship contender grade. We are now a D+, the 91st school in the whole nation. So those odds are very unfavorable for us to even be considered for the CUSA championship right now. So hopefully by the end of this season, we can get up to at least a C, at least a B. We want to be at least a B- or somewhere in there, just so coming into the transfer portal, we're able to strike big on some some of those recruits that are transferring, looking for an opportunity on a school that has a good grade as far as championship contention goes. And while our coach prestige is currently a D minus, even worse than our championship contention from the 128th ranked school as far as Coach Rasheed goes in the whole nation. And taking a look at our recruiting board, Elijah Kanoy, looks like we are starting to pull away from Middle Tennessee, and we do have his 3 main pitches that he likes. So I'm going to go ahead and do the full pitch, get him bought in. Not going to send that other 10 yet on him yet, because like I said, it doesn't look like Middle Tennessee State is pursuing him too hard. So we should be able to get him fairly easy, and that'll be big for us. So that's going to be our main focus this year. Now that we struck out on that offensive tackle last week, definitely got to make sure we get Kanoy 3-star gem. Probably going to be an impact or a star depth trait. So definitely don't want to let that go to the wayside. So definitely want to make sure I'm doing what I can do to ensure that he's on campus this time next season. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule his visit. See, he's A+ in playing time. So let's go ahead and get that A+ visit scheduled. And if we get Kanoy, like I said, 6'5", 244-pound left end out of Florida. And if we can end up walking away with him, this, class is going to be an A grade automatically. Taking a look at the passing yard leader so far this season, looks like Maverick is 6th place, 464 passing yards, 78 completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. So off to a really, really nice start for him. Just got to come around with Henry. Like I said, I knew I had talent at that quarterback position. I just wasn't tracking on how much talent that we had at that wide receiver position. So right now, Maverick is in a nice spot heading into our 3rd game of the season, but we just need to work on getting Henry some touches. Hopefully he can start climbing up that Heisman ladder as well, and we can hopefully have 2 Heisman hopefuls. This game right here looks like it's going to be my first test of the season, our first away game. We're going up against Toledo. So not a conference game. They're from the MAC, but still, your first away game in a visiting stadium. And as we see, Maverick gets recognized for his performance last week, 270 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. But your first real test is going to be your first away game as a head coach whenever you're either starting new at a program or it's just the first away game of the season. Like, it's always just going to be that test. See how your team is able to translate what they're doing at home, if they're able to make it translate to their away games. 2nd and 2, nothing fancy right here. Just a nice little inside zone read up the middle. Goes for a big gain. Gets us into Toledo territory. That 3-headed monster out the backfield has kind of been quiet. I mean, they got into the end zone a couple of times last week against FCS, but overall as a whole, this offense has been more centered towards our passing game. And as you see, you got Elijah Williams going down with an injury. Crazy thing about that is during the bowl game that they played in New Orleans, he actually went down with an injury. Somebody ended up rolling on his ankle. It looked like he broke his ankle, might have even dislocated it, but it was a pretty gruesome injury. But it was good to see he was still in high spirits as he could be given the situation. He was still in high spirits, able to give a salute as he was being carted off of the field. But definitely, hopefully he can have a speedy recovery. Definitely want to see him back on the field next season. And with him, he's kind of in the same situation as Rodney Tisdale Jr., the backup quarterback. He set out, he got injured in the bowl game, but luckily for Elijah Williams, he is still an underclassman, so he still has time to come back. Hopefully next year this team will be back in a bowl game and just continue to build on the strong season that he had this year. And I know he was playing at center in the bowl game because the original center, he ended up getting hurt. I think it was a couple weeks back, but I know for sure the center didn't play in the game, so then they had to move Elijah over to cover at the center position. And they said while he was there, the center, is usually the one that's calling out all the pre-snap coverages, who's going to block what and stuff like that, just making sure the line is pretty kosher. And when Elijah went down, you were definitely able to tell that they lost one of their leaders on the offensive line. So hopefully Elijah's not out for too long here. Definitely do not want to be without one of our leaders on the O-line. And an underthrown pass right there by the quarterback of Toledo. Bad read by me. Wasn't able to make the proper adjustment while the ball was in the air. So the ball ends up getting caught and going for a touchdown. Now you have a tie game, 7-7, going into the 2nd quarter. And honestly, I don't know too much about Toledo. That was a nice dot there. He threw it a little far too behind, but that was definitely a good throw on the run right there by Maverick. But like I was saying, I really don't know too much about Toledo as a whole, but I really do like the color scheme that they have. I like that gold and that blue color that looks really, really nice together. Kind of just like that red and black for us. Does Toledo have any players that are currently in the NFL, or are there any players that ever even came out of Toledo that made it to the NFL? I'm not sure. If you know of any, let me know down in the comments. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any players from Toledo that made it to the NFL. And off the top of my head, I keep wanting to say Julian Edelman, but I know he went to Kent State. They're in the same conference. They got the same colors. So I get those two schools confused a lot. But usually it's the quarterbacks from those smaller schools that make it to the NFL, just because a lot of times those schools are usually throw happy. So you usually have quarterbacks from those smaller schools be able to make it to the league. And also a lot of the times the line lines, the offensive lines are not as good. For example, like just off the top of my head, like a Georgia, they have a pretty good offensive line. They got a really good defensive line too, but they have a good offensive line. So the quarterback, a lot of the times, is not facing that same pressure that he would be facing at a smaller school where, one, you have kind of smaller linemen. Usually they might be the same size, might be a little, they more than likely they're going to be a little bit smaller than, those bigger schools, just because those bigger schools are going to scout the more sturdy players. They're used to feeling a lot of pressure because their offensive lines aren't as good as those top ranked schools. So once they get to the NFL and they either get drafted high or drafted wherever they go, they're able to create under pressure. They're used to having defenders getting past their offensive linemen, a play breaking down, and then having to adjust from that. Whereas somebody that went to a Georgia quarterback, they're used to being in the pocket and then that play developing because they have so many different weapons that are surrounding them. A nice read right there by Dave Herrard, our 6', 202-pound defensive back out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He is a redshirt senior, so definitely nice start right there, or nice, boom right there in what might be his last season playing football. A really, really nice play right there by him that puts us up 7 with about 1:30 left in the first half, and we're able to get to the quarterback. That's our 3rd sack of the game. So one downfall is they're getting into the end zone a lot. 2 scores is a lot in one half, especially for us. You see the way we started off this season. But our bright side on the defensive side of the ball is we are getting to the quarterback. Like I said, we have 3 sacks already in the first half. So on track to finish the game with about 6 sacks. Speaking of sacks, how are we feeling about Myles Garrett breaking the NFL all-time single season sack record? Officially, the leader is Michael Strahan with 22.5, but unofficially, before they started counting sacks as a official stat, Al Baker had 23 back in 1978. So right now, officially the record's 22.5, which is shared by Michael Strahan and TJ Watt. Currently, Myles Garrett is sitting at 22 even. So all he needs is half a sack to break the record, or if he gets a full sack, he'll own the record to himself. But that all just depends on how you want to count it, right? Because like I said, officially it's 22.5. So that's what most analysts are going to go by when they are talking about the sack record. But if you want to get unofficial, like I said, I don't know how unofficial something is. If it was still recorded, just not officially, it might have been off by 1 or 2. It might be right. Nobody knows. But I mean, somebody knows, but who is the person that knows, right? Who knows? So officially they're going to say he needs half a sack. But I know personally, he'll probably want to get 23.5. That way it's just no confusion on, who the real sack leader is. And by the time this video drops, he'll probably have 2 more games to do it. We're going into week 17 now. 2 games to get a sack and a half is definitely doable, because right now he's averaging over a sack and a half per game, and he still has 2 games left. So it shouldn't be any problem for him to break that record. But hey, who am I? I might be completely wrong. He might not want to break the record. He might just be satisfied where he's at now. Who knows? I don't know. I would assume that if you're out there playing a game that you love, you're trying to break records. I mean, at the same time, you're trying to have fun. You're trying to earn a living for your family. But if you got a chance to break a record that's right there, that you just worked so hard for all season, I don't care about anything else. I'm going 110% to break this record, just to leave no doubt in people's mind who had the best pass rushing season of all time. But let's jump back into the gameplay. We were able to score on that last drive that put us up 4 with about 6 minutes left to go in the game. As we see, the Toledo quarterback is absolutely torching our secondary right now. As we saw in the first half, 3 sacks. Really nice job from our D-line, getting pressure, making the quarterback uncomfortable. Now the quarterback has 302 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. So he's absolutely having his way right now with our secondary. So we got to work on our secondary if we want any chance of winning this game. And as you see now, it's 3 touchdowns by the Toledo quarterback. So definitely got to get a stop here, or either drain the clock out, run the rest of the clock down. Hopefully we can do that, because like I said, I don't see our secondary being able to stop this quarterback. This quarterback is on one right now. So as a head coach, this is where I would go to my defensive coordinator and let him know that he needs to have a talk with his DB coach, because there's no reason why this guy should be torching us like this. I don't even know who the Toledo quarterback is. He might be nice. I see he has a star in his name. I don't even know who he is. Like, why is he giving us the work like this? And then I go over to my offensive coordinator and tell him, please do not let them get the ball back. We're only down by 3. I don't care. Just kick a field goal so he can go into overtime. But please make sure that they don't get the ball back, because I do not need this quarterback doing a miracle, especially while they're at home in Toledo. 20 seconds left. We hand the ball off and we go in for a touchdown. And you don't know how much I wanted to dive right there and go down at the 2-yard line and just drain the clock out some more, just to make sure that offense did not touch the field again. So they have about 10 seconds left. The game is definitely not over. They're only down by 4, so they're going to need a touchdown. But yeah, the game is definitely still in reach, especially for them. 7 seconds, 1st and 10. They're still in their own territory. Looks like the quarterback is going to hold it for way too long, and he's This is going to be the last play of the game right here. And wow, it looks like he almost caught it, but we ended up knocking it out of his hands at the last second. So it looks like we're going to take the victory by 4 points in Toledo. Still going to walk away undefeated at 3-0. So definitely survived the shootout. Great game. We were down heading into the fourth quarter. We were able to outscore them 14-7 in that last quarter. As you see, Hart is the player of the game, 57 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns. So we might actually have a dual-headed threat coming out of the backfield, because last game we had Landers win player of the game, and this game we end up having Hart win player of the game. So it looks like they're both getting touches and they're both being productive out of the backfield. So it's kind of reminding me now of a Detroit Lions having Jamar Gibb and David Montgomery, or even the Tennessee Titans having Chris Johnson and Lindell White. And then as we take a look at our receiving yards, we still didn't get Henry as involved as we would like. He catches for 53 yards. That's all I got from out. Peace.